Many of us believe in our guts. A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of leaders, they trust their gut. And I think that's like the crux of screwing up hiring, by just trusting your gut, right? Not having the left and right limits, not having a systematic or systematized structure, and having a structured, hiring process.
Welcome to Office Libations Unwrapped. I'm your host, Claude Burns. I'm here with Freddie Kim, the founder and CEO of MilSpec Talent. I'm really excited about this conversation today because Freddie is in the talent acquisition space, and we all want to hire better people and make sure that they're really aligned to our organization's culture and values. Freddie, welcome.
Hey, Claude. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, one thing I want to let listeners know is that you're a 4-time All-American boxing champ. Is that correct?
I am. It's because I was a little 125 pounds. There wasn't too many opponents in my weight class,
You're just being humble. Do you still keep up with collegiate boxing much?
I follow Army boxing because my coaches are still, getting after it, and they're crushing it right now. Army boxing, I think 11 times they won the national championship in the NCAA.
Do you remember who won this year?
Shut up. No way. I didn't even check this year. No.
Sorry, man. Navy is the current national boxing champions.
Oh, all right.
So,
I'll give you that.
Figured I'd start you out on that.
I guess it gets tiring. You gotta, switch it up once in a while. So it
sure.
reminds me of
whatever makes you feel better. Yep. It happens. So to let the audience get to know you a little bit better, we kind of sort of do a quick hit segment. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right into that. Cool. And coffee or tea?
I'm a coffee guy.
Okay. Do you have like a favorite brand of coffee?
Kind of whatever's in the Keurig,
Got it. What's your go-to like work, drink, or snack?
I think hard-boiled eggs. Lots of protein in there. Yep.
Do you do them with like salt and pepper, hot sauce?
Yeah, I dash a little bit of salt on it, and I just throw the whole thing in my mouth and crush it. So quick and easy,
Healthy. That's great.
Healthy. Yeah.
You're retired. Money's no object. Where do you live?
I think like in a huge mountain cabin, like overlooking that, those cabins you drive along and you're like, dang, that's like almost about to fall off, but it's overlooking everything. Something like that. That'd be where I live.
That's awesome. What book are you reading right now?
I'm currently reading Choose Your Enemies Wisely by Patrick Bet-David. Recently been harping on the book Buy Back Your Time to like everyone I know and saying, read it if you're interested in buying back your time.
Okay. So Buy Back Your Time, high recommendation.
Yes. Super high.
Who's your favorite historical figure, either dead or alive?
I'm a boxer. It could be, hopefully it could be a fictional character as well. So Rocky Balboa, he's my all-time favorite, and just what he's been able to push through and the lessons he teaches. So yeah.
Rocky. Do you have a favorite Rocky?
I mean, you cannot go wrong with Rocky IV, against the Russians, USSR at the time. But yeah, the Rocky montage, every time I hear that, it just like gets me going.
As a boxer, it totally makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I'm a meathead,
Yeah, I like it. All right. But before we sort of get into MilSpec Talent,
sure.
You mind sharing a little bit about sort of your background and what sort of led to the founding of MilSpec?
Yeah. So I did 10 years active duty, and I got out of the military, of the Army, and I felt like I had more potential outside. And when I jumped, I don't know about you, Claude, because you're you're a better person than me. But I kind of got out of the army and of service thinking I was like God's gift to corporate America. I was like, yeah, I can do anything. Just give me anything and I'll figure it out. I'm a Green Beret, rah, rah. But that obviously was not the case. So I kind of learned a little bit of construction, a little bit of manufacturing, ran a business. And then I said, hey, I really need to understand how to do this business thing. And I'm much better as an officer, just to, instead of OJT, kind of learning, like structured learning. So I got my MBA, and that's kind of where, probably like you, my whole world just like flipped, and I saw the possibilities. And I saw two things, Claude. One, like throughout that, I guess, 5-year journey before the MBA, I saw one that their leadership, the lack of leadership, the leadership gap in corporate, it is real, right? People want to, they say they're leaders, but they don't know how to lead. They're more managers, and they want those KPIs and numbers, and leadership is lacking. And then two, I realized that, you know, any leader who wants to build something needs to recruit well, needs to recruit a team, because you may be gifted in an area, but you can't do everything yourself, obviously. I was very bad at recruiting, and I screwed up, had several mishires along the way. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to learn how to do this right. And in fact, and while doing so, and while perfecting this, I'm going to connect this group of small medium-sized business space, this leadership gap. I'm going to connect them with some of these amazing people I've served with that I know can handle it. And that's kind of evolved through helping small medium-sized businesses find their executive talent, and also helping private equity firms, funds with their portfolio companies and the management there. That's been a 5 or 6 year journey now, and it's been fun.
That's awesome. I think your perspective is really unique because you sort of sit in kind of two sides. One, you're running your own company, so you have all the same hiring and recruiting and sort of company challenges, but then you also get to see from the other side of people trying to source people into their organizations, people running lots of different industries. So you get to see how other people are really running their companies and really thinking about talent management and talent acquisition. And sometimes I'm sure you have like best practices that you'll share with us later. But to start, like most people want to know like the simple question, like, how do I hire better? You said yourself, like, I've struggled with it and I wanted to figure out how to do it. Well, how do you do it?
I feel like my hypothesis is that veterans are really bad at hiring because we were never taught it. If you think about it, every group and team you are on or led, that was given to you from, your command, and said, go and execute. And we never were taught like how to scout and how to pick and choose and convince folks to join the team until you get to the higher levels, which I was not. So I think many of us believe in our guts, and this goes for vets and non-vets. A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of leaders, they trust their gut, and I think that's like the crux of screwing up hiring, by just trusting your gut, right? Not having the left and right limits, not having a systematic or systematized structure, and having a structured, hiring process. So like I would recommend that to most business owners or business leaders. It's just, have you, simple questions like, have you asked the same question to the same type of candidates consistently? And have you recorded those answers? And have you even taken time to look at them and even score them, right? And try to remove bias. All of us have cognitive biases, and most of us have the confirmation bias, right? You see somebody in the first 30 seconds, you're like, I like this guy, or I don't like this guy, and everything else you talk about, you're just confirming that initial thought. So how do you remove that? And I think trying to come up with a unbiased, objective hiring structured process that is the key for most people. And oh, by the way, if you have a process, you can bring in people to play parts in that process, and you're not doing everything yourself, right? And you're having their feedback, and you're actually building a team culture through that, instead of you saying, "Hey, I could do everything, and I'm going to hire the best," and hence you're screwing up at it because you're doing everything else. Long answer to that.
Yeah, and what's sort of that process look like? You hear some companies, it's like you show up, you get a job. Other companies have, 8 different interviews with 20 different people over the course of 3
Sure.
months. Is there a right fit? Is there any sort of, research around what helps people hire, more successfully, or is there like sort of a drop off?
Yeah, there's a lot of techniques, Claude. Lots of books written about it. The whole top grading is a like a it's a book, and also like a technique of having really systematic ways. I don't and I've seen people um, who do it like you said, just really quick, have two interviews, and you're hired, and it works out well. And I've seen people that have super deliberate process that doesn't. So there's a wide variety, and I would it's one of those MBA answers that depends, but it kind of how your team functions and what everyone's good at, and can you share the feedback with people? Do you have a actual culture that you can harp on and you can vet the candidate against? I think all of those things, it impacts it impacts the quality of your candidate. One thing, Claude, is that even though like the best of the best in hiring, right, best of the best in hiring, you would be you would be right only 60-70% of the time, because in the end, people are fallible. They have their weaknesses. They may exaggerate some things. It may not be a good fit, and you can never tell. It's a volatile thing. You're dealing with people. So even though you're the best of the best, only 2/3 of the time you'll be right.
I'm sure that will make a lot of people feel a lot better,
Yeah,
hearing that sort of come from someone that's involved in a lot of different companies' hiring processes. I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about your company. Like,
sure.
how do you think about sort of hiring people, training people, creating a experience for the people that work for you?
Yeah. So it's a good point that you're harping on now, because there are lots of recruiting organizations or recruiting, brands that tout their recruiting background and their success. And they're like 2-man teams, maybe 3-man teams. And they're like small, nimble, and they can go and get stuff done for you. And usually the top, the founder, top recruiter, he or she is doing all the work and putting everything together. I deliberately chose, Claude, to build a business. Like, I want to build a team. I don't want to be doing everything. So we've taken things slower. Um, and I really try to spell out like, what functions do I need? How do they fit with our existing people? How does that fit with culture, and our objectives, and hire kind of to make that happen? So kind of like an assembly line process in hiring. So for us, I'm sure you've heard this. It's just hire slow and kind of fire semi fast, right? So we've been more deliberate in hiring slower, so that we can like have each of our key members assess candidates and go and make sure that what candidates are telling us, even though they're repetitive questions, are they consistent, that kind of thing. And do we have everyone's, do we understand what everyone feels is important on the team? Does it go back to our values? So we've been a little bit more deliberate with that. Just clear values. This is what we're hiring against. This is the purpose and the function, purpose of the function, and we have had a lot of people interact in that process on my team, as opposed to just Freddie Kim, which a lot of people do. They go, I'm the owner, I can say no go. So, hey, I'm going to hire how I feel. And then, oh, even though somebody else may interview on your team, they're like wondering whether, would Claude like this person? Would Freddie like them? Instead of objectively trying to view, like, I am really trying to focus on their technical competence, right? Or culture fit according to this standard. So, I feel like I'm getting a little too deep in this, but is this making sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. I think that structured process and bringing more people in
Hmm.
helps get more opinion and reduce some of the biases that you see in
Hmm.
hiring. Like I know my bias for military veterans is very strong,
Mm.
and so other people on my team less biased towards or in favor of veterans, and
Yeah.
so having a process allows them to sort of objectively assess that candidate and also have the space to say I actually don't think they're the right fit. And if you just sort of are like, well, what's Claude think, or what's Freddie think,
Yeah.
or what's the hiring manager think, if that's how you're judging your decision, it's really hard to objectively assess a candidate. So to me it makes sense.
You're right on.
We've
Yeah.
definitely learned a lot through the years of how to try to find and recruit good people, because very similar to you, I was not very good at it for a very long time,
Yeah.
and I don't think I'm very good at it.
Yeah.
But it is something that I think if you want to grow an organization, you have to learn to get good at hiring.
Oh man.
And it's already 2/3 of the time it's like baseball, right? You get a hit once out of 3 out of 10 times you're a
Hmm.
all-star.
Yeah. True.
um
You did also mention like some companies that do it really high, like fast and effectively, and I would imagine that they have done. They have refined their system. They have automated parts of it, right? So once you have a system, you can continually improve to make it more efficient, where you're not, or it's not manually touched every time. And you can also have like behavioral assessments. I think we'll talk about that later, but behavioral assessments to do a lot of the vetting and filtering for you. So you're not, again, speaking to somebody 30, 45 minutes, and in the end, it's just you've missed something obvious, right? Because they're telling you all good things about them. So use of tools and understanding their value, I think, is also a very key ingredient to this.
I'm a big fan of kind of the behavioral assessment piece. I think it provides another data point, and I've seen it work in a lot of different settings, both in the military and sort of out. So I'm a fan of those types of tools, but ultimately they're I view them as a data point. How do you kind of look at those behavioral assessments?
I don't take it for the valid truth, or I don't the actual truth. It's just a data point, like you said. So what I usually do is, in these assessments, the more extreme you are, like the results show, the more extreme you are, probably um, you're probably like that. But if you're closer to that mean, or you're closer to that average of people who've taken that assessment, it kind of goes back and forth, right? So I take those that information, and then I ask and understand, like, what makes that person extreme in that situation, and how have they are they using it to their benefit and their strength, or is this a obstacle for them? So I take that and I use like the interviewing process, behavioral questioning, situational questioning, to understand and validate what the results are showing. That way you have more concrete examples of how autonomous somebody can be with decision making, right? You understand how they view that, uh, and how they actually implemented that over their career.
And so when we're thinking about like the general overall hiring market, right? A lot's changed in the past 4 or 5 years, and sort of what people expect out of work, what their relationship looks like for work. Can you sort of share some things you've sort of seen in placing candidates? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but typically you're placing more senior sort of executives, high level managers into organizations, much less entry level positions, and typically in sort of what we'll call like sort of small medium businesses. Um, have you seen any sort of change in like what employees, sort of the people you're trying to recruit to join a company, are looking for today?
One thing is the unemployment rate is low, but it's creeping up. It is creeping up, and it is currently, I think, 3.8 or something along those lines. And there's gonna that which means obviously more candidates in the market, right?
Mhm.
So I think employers will have. I think it's as there's some volatility in the economy. There's going to be more, available supply. So which makes things more competitive for the candidates and allows the employer to have better choice and better selection. Um, so with that said, I've seen employers want to pay for the value of candidates, and from the recent layoffs and tech, and that's all going into why the unemployment rate is rising. People's salaries have inflated. Inflation has pushed that, but companies understand this and they want to hire the best people, right? So that's one. The also probably common sense, but after the pandemic, people have gone into businesses more. There have been more mandates on working in the business, working in a facility, as opposed even some biz dev folks. They want them to be involved and continue to learn, as opposed to more of that remote and or hybrid roles. But that being said, there's a strong, like we as a society, I think, learned a lot in working remotely, and a lot of capabilities have developed, and I think there's still a robust kind of demand for that, for executive assistants and or financial folks or marketing folks, etc. So people have opened that up, but I'm seeing more of the coming to the work, but we will pay you for what you're worth now.
So would it be fair to say that a lot of the companies you're working with are willing to sort of pay top dollar for talent, but they kind of need that talent, in space, in office, in warehouse, in manufacturing plant?
I think there's been a little bit. There's people understand the whole quiet quitting phenomenon, and I think people like culture is more and more a bigger popular kind of thing, right? So I think people understand that people are being managers and hiring managers are being more deliberate about building that. Although sometimes they don't get it right. But it's more this people how employees feel appreciated. It is important thing.
Are you noticing any of your clients doing particular things to help build that culture, either on the hiring side, making sure you get kind of the people that share values in, or post hire to develop those shared values?
I'll give you an example. One of our clients right now, private equity backed company. I was having a conversation with one of their hiring managers and employees, and they said, "Hey, our goal is to I forget exactly the number. It was like 6 million X. We need to achieve 6 million and produce it." So I it was very specific, right, for somebody to say that. And I would imagine I turn around and talk to the front desk, and they'll say the same thing. 6 million is our goal, and it's just putting out an incentive, a target, and an incentive of a company wide week long party or just outing in Cancun. That's what everyone was looking forward to,
Okay.
and they it's very clear, right? This is the goal. This is what we can do, and it's not dollars. It's not like confusing profitability. It's just we need to make X or we need to do X, and it was crystal clear for them. So I having culture like that really rallies the troops. I think that's a phenomenal thing. I have another client that only does remote and has been doing remote from prior the pandemic, and he likes to give autonomy to people. They do frequent check-ins. He has a very systematic, like a structured weekly schedule. But people love that. People love that because they can feel heard, they feel connected, and then they turn around and do their own thing. So, yeah, just probably not too off the wall, crazy ideas, but just getting it, implementing it. That's what matters.
Communication, right? Those
Mhm.
regularly scheduled check-ins to make sure people have space to be heard and be valued, and they know it and know it's coming. And then sort of transparency. It's like, this is the goal of the company. This is what we're trying to achieve. This is what we're trying to execute against, and this is how you fit into that plan. And
Mhm.
kind of here's, in your example, here's the reward if we actually execute what we intend to do.
Yeah,
But
and
communication and transparency is what I'm hearing a lot of. It's like, how do people build culture? And those are the two main characteristics.
yeah, because through communication and transparency, it comes clarity, right? Like people, it makes things simple, and it just becomes clear. I have another a friend of mine running a multi-million dollar construction business, but culture is so like developed there. I'm so proud of what he's been able to do, and he encourages people to take trips, and it's fun, company funded trips for self discovery, and he gives them that opportunity, and the team loves it. They share pictures all over social media, they share pictures with one another, and they what they've kind of learned. I mean, there's some really creative ways to do it, and it's all about just clarity of mission, where you're going and what you need to do.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit about recruiting in general. What's really the value of hiring a recruiting firm to run your hiring process for you?
Yeah, so why hire MilSpec Talent?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a great
yeah.
question.
That's another way to put it.
Yeah.
I was doing more
Yeah,
general, but yeah,
yeah,
answer the question how
no,
you'd like.
yeah, it's a great question because people don't understand the value of a service space sometimes like this. Recruiters are expensive. Headhunters are expensive. I think we all know that. I think, however, um, one, you should be working with a recruiter that's familiar with your space. That way, they have that market mastery and understanding of that space, whether it's industry or that type of people. Right? For us, it's the candidate side. We know how to interpret military experiences and how that's and the transition of that into the corporate world. We understand the nuances to that, and we understand what it takes to lead at a certain level in your organization. Um, I believe, Claude, like you, every leader, they all have gifts. Like you have your zone of genius, if you will. You have that area you excel at, and you're in a kind of like a free flowing state when you're in that zone. But recruiting may not be one of them, and or other things, financials may not be one of them. So you have a tax on that gift. So when you have a gift tax, right, what do you have to do? You have to build a team around it and or outsource it accordingly, so that you can get the best people to do those tasks for you, like a executive assistant, right? Somebody who thrives in that, or a bookkeeper who thrives in that keeps you out of it. So that's where I think the value of recruiters are. The space really, really well. You understand the market. We can tell you what we've seen and what the trends are. And then in actuality, I think it allows the recruiting process to have like a bigger pipeline faster. That of course we're vetting, the recruiters are vetting, but we go through many more people than you are able to do on your own time or on your resource, and we're able to filter that out so that it kind of you only worry about the guys that kind of float, the cream that floats to the top. So, like anything else, I think you want to bring in people who are really good in that specific area, and if that's worth that reward for you, if that um, gives you an ROI.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm reading your bio, and you have something with MilSpec Talent called Veteran 2.0. Can you share what Veteran 2.0 is and what happened to Veteran 1.0?
Yeah. So a veteran is anyone who's served and they are beyond that period of service. We've decided to focus on what we call Veteran 2.0, who are veterans who are beyond that transition state. So after you serve, right, for however many years, somebody transitions, and in probably practicality, like all practicality, that transition and finding that next job, that can be defined in that way. But I think mentally, somebody needs to demilitarize, somebody needs to understand how they can fit into the corporate world, what kind of value they can bring. So the Veteran 2.0 is that next level, that next version of them where, Claude, you understand from your time on the ship, and the leadership you've learned there, how does that translate and how have you been effective as a leader there? So in terms of years, we classify that typically like 3+ years. For me, it took like 5 to 8 years to figure that out, as a knuckle dragger. But I'd say somewhere like that 3 to 5 year mark, you better understand, a candidate, a veteran 2.0 better understands what they can contribute and how they can, get immediate recognition for their competence in an area, right? They're not just learning it all and they're not figuring it all out. They're not saying they can do everything, because those are the people you have to stay away from.
So how do companies, when they're bringing on veteran talent, how do they onboard them and set them up to be successful? And is it any different than sort of, non-veterans?
If you look at kind of the headhunters in the space, the military veteran headhunters right now, most of them are in that transition space. And I think companies, and this has been ongoing, right? Like 15, 20 years now, the headhunters being prominent. Most companies didn't know how to really make that company veteran friendly and onboard kind of effectively. And hence vets felt like they were expected to do something or expectations didn't match. I mean, there's a stat here: 43% of vets quit their job in their first year of transitioning vets, and
So
and
first job
60%,
post-military.
yeah, in the first year, right? And 60% they quit in the first 2 years. So it's just vets don't know how to serve at that point, or
Mhm.
who they are and what exactly is your purpose again, right? Many of us struggle with that. What's our purpose? What can we really, what can really get me out of bed in the morning, and keep me grinding again. And it takes a couple years in my mind to figure that out. Going back to your question, I think not companies, but civilians. I think civilians don't appreciate that as much. I mean, if you think about it, like somebody who graduates college, they are also in a transition state, but they've been a civilian their whole life, so they know, how to talk to other civilians. You don't bark order at other civilians, or you don't expect things to be just done. All right, when you lay something out, I think they're a little bit closer. So I think just companies haven't understood that, and now there's just more awareness. Man, I'm so pumped to see that more awareness in what fit looks like, what kind of training is required. Are you sure you want to like spend? And this is education. This is the world of environmental cleaning. This is the pros and cons of it. Just figure it out. Do you like it? Do you see yourself in it? I think there's more education going on that's helping that transition to be faster.
I experienced a very kind of similar sort of thing post military, and I think most of us have always sort of worked with and led people who are, in some ways like shared a lot of the same values and sort of had like a lot of structure around the military and how it functions and operates. When you sort of go to a company, everyone sort of has like different, goals and, why are you here? It's like, maybe it's to get promoted to the next job. Maybe it's just to learn. Maybe it's just to pay the bills. And I think being a veteran, you're always around people that's like, it's mission focused, it's, values, you're sharing so many of these things. And then when you go to a more, heterogeneous sort of mission and values organization, it's really hard to understand, like, where do you fit in, and you don't know kind of the same levers that you used to use as a leader to get results don't necessarily work anymore. And so you really have to kind of do it more on a almost like a person by person basis to figure out what motivates
Exactly.
this person, what makes them tick. And it does take, I mean, certainly for me, took time to sort of understand that. And also, what is the gap in, my leadership capabilities, and how do I fill those? And I think it is nice to hear that other companies are starting to have better onboarding and sort of transitioning of veterans into their organizations.
Yeah, isn't that your leadership on the ship? You're saying doesn't work for office libations?
It's different, yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Very different. I
right.
won't go into how or why currently,
Yeah,
but yes, it's different.
super, right? Super different, and it is just I really like how you phrased it. Instead of the whole blanket kind of leadership approach and people respecting your rank and your position and Roger, sir, it is an individual, like, trust building exercise in the corporate world, which takes a lot more touch, it takes a lot more empathy, something that I wasn't equipped with much transitioning. And that's what I mean, Claude. That transition for me took 5, maybe 8 years. And that 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 was a big point for me to learn. Like, how do I, empathy, what is that? How
Yeah.
do you spell empathy? That's kind of where I was. And that's obviously the wrong answer, because like some of the best leaders in the military have that now.
Mhm.
But young Freddie Kim did not. I was just a go-getter, mission focused, like go go go. And I think a lot of us fell in that category at that time.
And so, what advice would you have for, companies that are looking to hire, you know, regular talent or veteran talent
Mhm.
to lead their organizations and to actually set them up to be successful within their organization? You said 43% leave in sort of, the first year.
Mhm.
But then you also gave me the stat, only 60 to 70% hires work out. So it seems
Yeah.
like, well, veterans may be slightly worse in that first role. It's not too far off from the overall success rate. So how do we do better than that?
I love that question, because that almost kind of, you know, paid you to ask that question, because that's where the whole veteran 2.0 concept kind of it's relevant, right? I mean, I would, if I was a small business, I would think twice, um almost, trice before hiring a transitioning veteran. I would really think about, like, is that skill very transferable? Like recruiting, would a recruiter from the army be able, or navy, military, will they be able to recruit effectively for me? Probably yes, right? But if I want to bring somebody as the COO, and there's so many more aspects to it, I want a more mature, somebody who's been through that. So that's the veteran 2.0, veteran 3.0. I mean, yes, it's just, if you think about it, veterans that have left the military for some time, if you think of it as a loose definition. But it's that during that time, what has that veteran done? What areas have they shown interest in? What areas have they been successful? And you bring in that type of leader, because you have that strong fundamental of leadership, now coupled with industry experience, industry nuanced knowledge, and able to make decisions. I think that's the best. Now, for those, and I'm not saying not to hire transitioning veterans, there's a purpose for transitioning veterans for sure. And for the companies that are willing to invest, and it is an investment into veterans like that. Thank you very much. We always need that. But those typically, I would say, are companies that have larger, you know, larger bank accounts, right? Lots of zeros where they can kind of afford to do that, and they're also doing it for um, like a patriotic reason. I would say, Claude, too, don't hire vets to be a patriot. Like, not all vets are alike. Don't. Oh, I'm a patriotic business owner or leader. I want to hire a veteran. Do not force that. I think veterans are an investment for you and for your team, especially. So our mission, just real quickly, we want to unite these remarkable leaders to the most honorable form of management, uh, on the most honorable career, which is managing people, right? And that's from Clayton Christensen. But we want to do that because I believe most vets want to serve. They want to make impact. They want to make things better for other people. And I think in turn, if you find that purpose again, our 10x kind of vision is to eliminate veteran suicide. I mean, once you, as a veteran, one of my hypotheses is that it's your career, and how you define yourself. A lot of it is in your career, and if you have that career that's able to like help others and grow others and really lead again, I think that may contribute to people being happier, and their employees being happier and less stress.
For sure. I mean, I think you're spot on with veterans sort of being called to service, and whether that's in the military or at a company level or serving their teams and their people.
Hmm.
I think it's just something that people who are attracted to the military service are also just attracted to general service in general. So running your own company, I know you hire a lot of vets. What things have you done to help them be successful in your company, and make sure that they're not leaving and churning, and providing value to your company at the level that we both know that they're capable of?
Yes. So I'll answer that in two ways. One, for candidates that we place right through our company. One thing I really wanted to do differently, Claude, as I built this recruitment business, is to treat candidates like better, treat them like people, right? Treat them like they have options, and that we are just enhancing those options. I personally went through a couple of these transitioning headhunters in the past, and I always felt at the end,
Mhm.
just like I feel like a commodity. They just want to sell me and land me, and then in the end, they're getting a fat check. I learned afterwards. So I never want my candidates to kind of feel like that. The people we reach out to, I want to see, like, is this a fit for you? Are you interested? Is this going to help you in your journey? Right? I think that's a lot of my recruiting team
So you're
thinks of
actually
it that
helping the
way.
candidates do some of
Oh
that
yeah,
self-searching on, like, hey,
yeah.
yeah, it's got a nice salary, and it's at the beach, but is this really what's going to make you happy at life?
Yeah. And of course we have to, like, we have to tell them all of the make sure they're aware of all the benefits of an opportunity and location. So we are very transparent. So that's one thing we do very different. Like, we want to make sure this is a great fit for the long run, and not just for that one placement, or that one time placement. So for the candidate side, we're transparent. We want to, of course, have a placement. That's how we make money. But there's no like hard feelings. We have relationships we're going to continue to build over the years. And we've had several candidates that we haven't placed that were later like, hey, recruit for me, help me here. So that's one. The other thing, so internally when we hire, I don't know. I think I've heard this from my buddy Jason Holman, and he does it in his firm. But he's learned of like expressing your values. Obviously, like, just, what are the top 3 to 5 values for your company, but then defining that through behaviors. Like, what does, for us, the first one is, we are relentless. Like, what does that mean? Because you can be relentless in a number of ways, right? So we actually take those each of our 4 values. We are relentless, we're bold, we're inquisitive, we are serving, and we break them down into 5 kind of behaviors that we think is that we are saying is what defines that value. So in the end, I think it allows us to just be more clear about what is kind of right for the organization. The organization, how do we make decisions that are right in the right way for the organization? And I think that just helps the team kind of really, you know, instill those understand and instill kind of what does it mean to be inquisitive, right? And it's through these X behaviors. So I would recommend that exercise. That was huge for Jason to have introduced that to me, because I struggled with that for a while. I remember a couple of years ago asking myself, what is an A player for MilSpec, right? And I had no standard, like going back to what we talked about. I had no standard of what that was. It was somebody I liked. That was my answer. And that's obviously not like transferable. You can't systematically hire from that. So like, kind of breaking that down, what those behaviors are, that's really helped us just narrowing it down.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Freddie.
Awesome.
I love that behavior with values. I think that's a brilliant exercise. Really want to thank you for being on the show today and chatting with us and sharing your experience with recruiting and recruiting veterans and placing veterans. Great work that you do. If people want to find you, online, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, best way is hit me up. I would say connect with me on LinkedIn, please, Freddie Kim, and then shoot me an email. I get a lot of like LinkedIn messages, and they sometimes get piled and lost. So shooting me an email, Freddie, FREDDIE at milspectalent.com. I think that's the best way we can connect. And I just want to say, Claude, what you're doing, like these podcasts matter, right? I know you're starting off, but they matter. They matter because it allows us to share our story and hopefully kind of impact one or two people in their journeys. So thank you for, spending your resources doing this.
Yeah, ultimately we want to make, workplaces better. We want people to enjoy their jobs, civilians, veterans, everyone before. It's a lot of what we do as a company. And so sharing sort of the best lessons learned from, smart people that think about it day in and day out. We get a lot more questions about, or at least I get a lot more questions about, how do we make our workplace better? Much more so than like, what's the best drink or what's the best snack or who's your favorite coffee brand. I can answer those questions too, but it's really about how do you provide the right environment, the right culture to drive your company forward, and it all comes back to people. So again, thanks so much, Freddie, and looking forward to catching up with you and sometime soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, man.
Thanks for listening to this episode with Freddie Kim on Office Libations Unwrapped. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more inspiration, ideas, and strategies to optimize your workplace culture. And remember, happy employees make happy customers. Until next time, I'm your host, Claude Burns.